Hey guys, I'm Tawny, founder of Sobriety Party and Readings on Recovery.
And I'm Lisa, author of Girl Walks Out of a Bar. And welcome to our podcast,
Recovery Rocks. We're going to talk to you about everything from recovery to rock and roll to living in New York City.
We're going to talk about how we got sober, why we got sober, and how we stay sober. Hello. Hey, everybody. I'm Lisa.
Hi, I'm Tawny.
Welcome to our podcast.
Welcome. Today we're going to talk about relationships. We've had someone submit a question about how relationships with family, friends, and colleagues have changed since we've entered the recovery world.
And they have.
Boy, have they.
Yes.
Boy, have they.
And one of the aspects that came up in this discussion was the idea of communication and how we communicate with people. So I'm going to read a short section from my book, Girl Walks Out of a Bar, that is exactly what not to do. It is a lesson in what not to do when trying to figure out how to communicate. I had just spent 5 days in a lockdown detox in a psych hospital in New York, and went home to my family. My parents and my brother were very supportive, and they were very kind to pick me up and bring me back to my parents' place for the weekend, where I would just be able to like rest up and hang for the weekend. And took a shower finally and a big nap, and I went downstairs and we were getting dinner. We were ordering dinner, and I will take it from there. Not 5 minutes later, I learned that the world was not about to start revolving around me. "Are we drinking?" my dad asked my mother and brother, slightly tentatively. I should, as a side note, say that cocktail hour was standard in my house. After all, it was cocktail hour and everyone had had a rough day. "We know you're not drinking," my dad said to me with a laugh. Then all three of them looked at me for a response. I looked back at them blankly. Of course, my first thought was that if I can't drink, nobody else should. So much for not being a pain in everyone's ass. No one at Gracie Square had told me what to do in this situation, but my psychiatrist had said that staying sober would be the hardest thing I'd ever do. This must have been what he meant. "Buck up, Lisa. Welcome to your new life," I told myself. "You guys go ahead," I said. "It's okay. I'm going to have to get used to it." I dug my fingernails into the palm of my hand. "Are you sure?" my mother asked. "Yeah, I'm sure, I guess. I can't tell everyone around me not to drink because I'm an alcoholic, right?" For 10 years, I'd known that I was addicted, but right then I was amazed at how easily the words "I'm an alcoholic" breezed from my mouth in front of my family. "Okay, as long as you're sure," my dad said as he headed up the stairs towards the booze. Minutes later, he came back down with 2 glasses of Dewar's, those were for my parents, and a Heineken for my brother. So I should note that we had no sober references. I knew no one in recovery or who was sober, and my parents were much the same. They might have known 1 or 2 people, but we had no instruction manual for this. And, you know, I know now that really I should have said, "Please don't," you know, and that was what was in my gut in that moment, but I didn't feel entitled to have what was in my gut. I just inconvenienced everyone by going to detox, and now I was going to tell them they couldn't drink. I would have wanted to drink. And, you know, so that was just, and it also kicked off sort of my realization that the way I was going to need to think of things going forward was going to be very different than not just how I used to think about them, but how everyone else thought of them as well.
Yeah, and I love what you said about how it's like you inconvenienced everyone by going to get help, and it feels that way.
Yeah,
it genuinely feels that way. And whatever you said at the very beginning, what was it, like it's the world doesn't revolve around you or something? I think that coming to that realization in sobriety has been essential to learning how to communicate.
Yeah.
To where, and it's also because keep in mind I'm an only child with no cousins, so
the world did revolve around.
The world actually did revolve around me for a decent amount of time. So learning that people don't read my mind, people don't I have to communicate what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I want, in order to not to get what I want, but just so people can know what I'm thinking and feeling. And I would, you know, talking about relationships, dating, I would be passive aggressive in asking for what I want, if I would even be, even if I could be passive aggressive. That was lucky. But I would just want these men to know exactly how to please me, and what I wanted for Christmas and what I wanted for dinner that night. And no, like you have to speak up. You have to ask for what you want.
Nobody's a mind reader.
Ask for what you need. And then once you establish that kind of relationship, you get that back.
Right.
And that's so beautiful. And whether that's a romantic relationship, me and my mom, our communication has just exponentially grown since my recovery. My dad is sober now as well. My dad's been sober for 13 or 14 years, and our relationship has gotten so much better since alcohol's not part of it. Like we never drank together.
You didn't?
We never drank together. No, I was never old enough. There was a good chunk. There was a good chunk of time. I went like 6 or 7 years without seeing my dad, and that was like the formative. That would have been when I would have drank with him. And by the time I was old enough to drink legally, he had already quit drinking.
Yeah.
So it just never happened for us. And that's, you know, it is what it is. It's weird. Is it weird that like part of me wishes that like I could have gone back and like had a beer with my dad when he was still drinking?
No, that's not weird at all, but it certainly wouldn't have been a beer. It probably would have been like turned into some whole thing, and then you probably would have gotten into a fight.
You're right.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been this bonding fun thing.
I think it probably would have started out that way, where we'd be like passing a bottle of vodka back and forth, like bonding over heavy metal, and then it would just turn into a fight.
Right. Like nothing good starts with passing a bottle of alcohol back and forth.
No, not too often.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But it's hard. I mean, I think the relationships, one of the things that I have found challenging, and you talk about like whether it's relationships with family, with friends, whatever, getting on a sober journey and being in recovery, you know, really does change perspective. Like I find that, not that I don't have things in common, because I certainly still have all the same things in common, but my thinking has changed in just how I go about my everyday. And I like to think I'm more hopeful and positive than I used to be, although that's taken time. But they're used to the Lisa that thought and acted and responded to things one way, right? Which was a not sober way, which was very kind of, I think, selfish and, you know, not always the most helpful kind of thing, to, you know, trying to be somebody who shows up and is, you know, kind of a thoughtful person at the table instead of just kind of doing my own thing. And it takes it to a different plane. Like, you're not communicating. The playing field has changed, right? In terms of, you know, it's not the same speaking directly to each other. There's a different language being spoken now by one person than, you know, it can be a little tricky.
That's a good point. Yeah, because like, just because we're sober, not everyone is going to be on that same bandwagon.
Right.
Like, you and I are totally fine with talking about trauma and emotional meltdowns and things like that, but not everyone's there.
Right.
Nor do they have to be.
Right, and that's fine.
And that's fine.
going to be the case. Right.
But it's like, it's often like sobriety. We talk about sometimes how sobriety can be a mirror to some people, and it makes them uncomfortable.
Well, that's for sure.
Same with like we go to therapy, you go to meetings, I go to road recovery meetings. Like, we take care of our mental health, and then whenever you talk to someone who doesn't, and that can really scare them. Yeah. And so it is a different language.
It is. And there was always this, you know, kind of, I don't want to say like anger, but I was easy to get resentful. I was easy to complain about things. I was easy to, you know, look at the glass really half full. And if I do that today, I know that puts me at risk for a drink. So I have to avoid being the sort of preachy person who, when someone's like, you know, someone that I would have talked to before I got sober, you know, my boss is such a pain in the ass, like this and that, whatever. And I'll be like, well, you know, think about the good stuff that's going along with your job, and think about whatever. And the person who used to use me as a sounding board to commiserate will look at me like, who are you? I didn't come to talk to that person. Yeah. I came here to complain. Or I'll be like, you could take the following actions. You need to take the next right step and then turn it over. And people, I don't want to hear it. Like, I didn't come here for that.
That's so funny.
Because so much of what recovery does is give us tools and teach us how to handle situations that we used to just kind of gripe about.
Or just drink them away. Yes. Not even gripe about them, not even do anything about them. Just
totally.
Just ignore them.
Totally. Has your patience with people like family members changed, like become better, worse, or?
I think my patience overall has gotten better. And I'm definitely a lot more patient with people. I give people grace. But when it comes to myself, not so much.
Well, yeah,
I struggle with being patient with myself.
Have to be, yeah.
With giving myself grace.
I say this, and I know I do the same thing as you. Yeah.
And I think that's common with our mentalities as addicts. We tend to be pretty masochistic.
Oh, we beat ourselves up.
I don't beat myself up with drugs and alcohol anymore, but I still find ways to be mean to myself. But that is. Speaking of communication, learning how to communicate with yourself is incredibly important.
Self-awareness you develop.
The self-awareness and having to just know what's going on and be able to speak to that. Be like, you know what? My head's not in the right place. I actually can't go to your birthday party tonight.
Right.
Oh, let me take you to lunch next week.
Yep.
And it's like, and if they don't understand, they don't understand.
That's okay.
You got to take care of where you're at, and
hugely, yeah.
Friends and family and loved ones will honor that in you if you can take care of yourself.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes though, I run the risk of, I'm definitely more patient. I definitely can, try and put myself in the other person's position better than I ever used to. But I run the risk of being patronizing. I run the risk, there's this idea of like, I'll listen to somebody say something super dysfunctional or super negative, whatever, and I will have this tendency in my head to be like, not everybody has a program. Not everybody can think sober, and that is so obnoxious, right? But I catch myself at it, and then I'm like, I have to cut that out, because we can come off like, and I know that people, specifically when you talk about holding up the mirror and somebody forces them to take a look at their own drinking, they're going to be hypersensitive to anything I would say about like, well, you might want to just make a list of things you're grateful for. Yeah.
No, I'll
be grateful for you leaving this room right now.
I'm like that, but when it comes to like, if someone's bitching about, I really want to do this, but I haven't done it. I'm like, I get this like aggressive life coach comes out of me. I'm like, all right, well, let's get a pen and paper. Let's write out your goals. Let's make some action items. How can we make this happen? And they're like, whoa, I'm just wanting to bitch about where I'm at right now. Yeah. I just wanted you to listen. And I was like, I don't know. I'm probably not the right person for that. Right. I've learned that I'm probably not the right person because I'm so action oriented. Yeah. If you come to me with a problem about how you can't reach a goal, I'm going to help you get to that.
We're going to figure out how to
figure out how to get there. Yeah. And it can be patronizing at times because not everyone's looking for that. They want a friend.
The same friend that they had before, and now you're somehow different.
Yeah, it's annoying. Yeah. I know I'm annoying when it comes to that.
And try not to be judgy. Well, I wouldn't necessarily do it that way,
I know.
But it's it's a real risk. Like, we have to watch ourselves because it's not, there's a tendency to be like, well, now we know how to do it right. It's like, no, we do it different.
We found what works for us.
Right.
And even within that, you and I have different methods.
Yes, we do.
You have 12-step. Yeah. And that's so great. And I have road recovery and writing and yoga. Yeah. And we found what works for us. And it's so beautiful that, you don't judge me for not going to AA. Oh my God, I don't judge you for going to AA. It's like, cool. Yeah. This works for you.
Oh,
and look how happy you are because of it.
It's totally whatever works. Yeah. Yeah. It is not our place to judge.
It's not. And if no program works for you, cool. Yeah. Like, whatever, man. Like, who am I to judge?
Yeah. What about a romantic relationship? What's the communication?
Very very similar to what I was saying, like about with family, just asking for what you want.
Yeah.
And not, I've learned in sobriety that I'm very passive aggressive. I've learned that is almost a default behavior of mine. It's like
funny. I've never seen that in you.
Well, because I'm happy when I'm with you.
And I'm happy when I'm with you.
And we don't fight. But it's also like maybe because we're both sober and we speak that same language.
Right.
But I'm talking, maybe it's when I'm talking to someone else and maybe they're not sober, but I find myself just, if things aren't going my way, this is the only child coming out. Things aren't going my way, I'll pout and I'll be like, no, it's fine. I don't. and then I have to stop and be like, okay, you're 33 years old. That is not how an adult effectively communicates. And so then I'll communicate that now to where I'm just like, okay, my default is to do this, but I don't want to do that with you. Right. And I'll talk it out. And then he'll be like,
it's incredibly enlightened.
Thank you for sharing that with me. Now let's talk about this. And then we talk about it. And it's like, if that conversation would have happened 5 years ago when I was still drinking, it would have been a huge fight.
Yeah.
But it actually only turns into this 90-second thing, and then we move on from it.
Right. It's conversation and then it's done.
Yeah. It's just, it blows my mind how things that used to be fights can actually just be communicated and talked through.
Yeah. Well, that's very true because they don't get to the point of a fight. It doesn't have to get there.
No, there's there's things to fight about, but I've learned that effective communication can solve.
And I mean, look, if the other person's looking for a fight, there's very little you could do about it.
That's true.
But yeah, and I think there's another thing in changing in the relationships. It's like, I used to be so tough on whoever my romantic partner was in terms of meeting my expectations.
Oh yeah.
And now, like, I just feel like it's so much easier to accept people as they are and say, I am a flawed human. I have, I know my particular set of idiosyncrasies and ways I deal with things that might not be common to others, and I can see that somebody else is going to have their particular ways of doing things. I mean, I think that I've been married now for more than 10 years, and we met. He's never seen me drink. I was a year and a half sober when we met, and I think part of why it's always been easy for the two of us is he is just naturally a non sort of judgmental person. Like anything, I think
he's a cool guy.
He's a cool guy. But I mentioned that, like when I told him I didn't drink and I was terrified, that I was in recovery and I was terrified that was going to be the end of it. He thought about it for a minute and then he looked at me and he was like, "You'll be a cheap date." So like that's a pretty accepting kind of thing. And so we accept each other as we are. And that has just made, that's made it easier not to have confrontations because I'm not constantly being like, when are you going to do this? Why didn't you do that? You said you would do this, which I would have done in the past while I sat there with a bottle in my hand.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit the nail on the head there with the acceptance. And I know that's just, that's the serenity prayer, right? It's an essential part of recovery. Right. And except I remember I texted you the other day, like struggling with messiness. I'm like, how do I accept that my boyfriend is messy? How do I do?
But we talked it through, right?
We talked it through and you gave me great advice.
Well, it was like if you're struggling with someone who is messy, audience, like think about it, instead of putting it as like, here is a fault that this person has, think about it as like, why does that make me feel this way? Why does it trigger me? And then talk to the person about, what, mess makes me feel really unhappy and tense. And like I used to live back in the day and I don't want that. Right. If you can communicate that, then of course the other person is like, I don't want you to be, I don't want my situation to create that feeling in you. So let's figure out what to do. And it's baby steps.
It's baby steps. It's like, and it's recovery has taught me that it's the breaking things down. It's not just I don't like this mess. It's like,
right, you just
why don't I like this mess? What does this mess make me feel?
Right. Why is this
I never used
me?
to think that way before, and now and that, like, talking to you really helped. You're like, yeah, it reminds me of when I was drinking.
Yeah,
and there was disorder and there was chaos, and this relationship isn't like that. So it makes me like it was really helpful, and and then I could communicate that, and it's like, oh, okay,
yeah,
instead of like, clean this up,
right.
No one wants to hear that shit.
No
No one wants to hear someone nag at them.
No one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that. And that was definitely like my default mode, was because I was like the martyr going to work and working hard and whatever. And so, you couldn't tell me that I needed to do anything. I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing.
Oh yeah.
And it was so not true.
It's this funny balance of like being an addict and hating myself, but then also thinking that I'm so great that you should do everything like me.
That's the thing that they say in 12-step, which is, we all think we are the piece of shit at the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Which is really, it's true. Like, I'm the worst and everything revolves around me. But I always say too to my sponsees, when they're beating themselves up about something, I will say, like, would you tell someone else to, like, if you had a sponsee, would you tell that sponsee to be really mad at herself because she didn't do this one thing? Oh, no. Well, treat yourself the way you would treat somebody else. Like, you would be kind. Yeah. You would treat somebody else with kindness.
That's good advice. And Amy Poehler has a similar quote where she says, if we spoke to our friends the way we speak to ourselves, we would never have friends.
It's so true. It's so true.
Why are we so mean to ourselves?
I don't know.
It's most people, like,
yeah. But I feel like it's better in recovery.
It is better.
I am much less mean to myself, but I feel like I hated everything about myself back then. And
it's better for me, but we've talked before about how work addiction and perfectionism is a way bigger addiction to me than drugs and alcohol were. And because I still deal with that every single day. It's like, I don't know how to have downtime. I'm constantly working.
Yeah.
And if I'm not producing enough content, then I'm a piece of shit and I'm not enough.
Right.
It's not
the case.
I know.
It's just a lie you tell yourself.
It is a lie. And logically, I know these things, but emotionally, it's my default. It's, you're not enough. You're not doing enough. Do more.
Yeah.
And I'm still working with my therapist on how to chill out.
Yes.
On that.
Yes. Yeah. And I do think, like, there is, it's an ongoing body of work. But your, the way you conduct yourself with respect to the others in your life is different.
That's true.
And it improves. Why does this episode make me think about this whole time we've been talking? I have Led Zeppelin's Communication Breakdown in my head.
Because we've said communication probably 47 times.
Yeah, that's probably it. What's your favorite Zeppelin song?
We should have had a counter. Over the Hills and Far Away.
Music Minute. What's your favorite Zeppelin song?
Over the Hills and Far Away.
Really?
All-time favorite Zeppelin song. Houses of the Holy is my favorite
Zeppelin
Zeppelin
album.
I
was just going to say Houses of the Holy is my favorite Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's your favorite song?
My favorite Zeppelin song is Houses of the Holy.
Why?
I don't know. There's something in that, I don't know, if it's there's a transporting thing that's going on there. It's like, let me take you to the movies, and like, we're all gonna go. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I'll go. Where are we going?
Take me, Robert.
Take me.
Where are we going?
Take me. A friend of mine has played with in recovery. Talk about the miracles of recovery. A friend of mine who idolized Zeppelin, grew up on Long Island, totally idolized Zeppelin, has now, played music with Robert Plant.
Wow. What did he do with Robert Plant?
He was doing, they were shows that were happening in the UK, and he had a bunch of rehearsal stuff going on with him beforehand, and he's actually still in touch with him, which is pretty amazing.
That is pretty great.
Yeah. But that's, we think, I don't know. It's funny because I think about that, and I think about how all the really things that I'm most proud of have happened in recovery, and that, just going back to our topic about how we our relationships change, I have to be really careful not to get sort of judgy about that with other people.
Yeah. I feel that coming on when I'm out with friends and they're drinking and just, there's that, I'm fine with a couple drinks with people having a couple drinks, but then there's that when someone has that one drink
when
that puts them to the next level and their eyes are glassy and they're just gone.
Yeah.
I can't handle that. No. And I go into judgment mode in my mind. I'm like, why do you do this to yourself? Yeah. Why don't you love yourself enough to not drink this way? And I'm just like, I gotta go.
I'm like the same way. I'm like, you're gonna feel bad tomorrow. You're gonna wish you hadn't had another. I can't.
And you're gonna have another one after this, but you wouldn't have had that other one if you didn't have this one.
Yeah.
And it's coming from like, I love you and I want to help you, but like it brings up all of that judgment, and I'm like, that's my cue to leave.
That's our cue to leave. We can't be that way with people.
No, we can't.
All right. Well, I also love Dancing Days, by the way.
Dancing Days is great. Stone Temple Pilots did a great cover of that. Have you heard that?
Yes, I have, and I love
R.I.P.
Scott Weiland. Breaks my heart. He is one of the ones, like his death really just, I found.
Oh, it shook me.
Devastating.
That and Chris Cornell.
Read Chris Cornell? Chris Cornell probably worse, because that was more surprising to me. Did you read Mary?
No, you ask me this all the time.
Yes. Everybody should read Fall to Pieces, Mary Foster Whelan's
I would love to read that
about
from her perspective.
Sobriety. Yeah, her perspective, but it's also her recovery and her bipolar. So in recovery, like she was institutionalized in recovery. Like it's amazing.
And it's called Fall to Pieces?
Fall to Pieces.
And that's a Velvet Revolver song.
Yes. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Communicate with us about communication.
Or if you had enough communicating, we get it. Bye.